You're welcome. Now let's get into the details. Well, a camera technician today found himself so close to the president whilst he took the salute during the national anthem. Well, has security been let loose on his arrival in Parliament to deliver his first State of the Nation address at all? Well, security operators stood by as the camera operator took his camera almost to the president's face. Now the president's life is in danger. Is it that the president's life is in danger? The police struggled to pull the camera operator away, but there's resistance, and pretty much like lines in an action movie. Well, that happened today at the forecourt of Parliament House this morning, and experts are worried about the safety of the president with such security lapses. We'll be joined shortly by security analyst Dr. Kwesi Enning on this, but in the studio with me is my colleague Kojo Youngson, who was in Parliament and witnessed the incident. He's also been following developments since it happened. He's actually following a story that's focused on security around the presidency. Before I engage Kojo Youngson, by the way, here's what happened earlier today. Okay, so that's what happened earlier, just in case you haven't seen it. So he gets pushed away, he some way, somehow shows up again, and at this time he's right in front of the president. How bad is it? Kojo Youngson was in Parliament today. He joins me in the studio. Kojo, did this mandate to generate any discussion in Parliament today, this issue?
Sadly, and this is part of the problem, Gifty, sadly it didn't generate enough conversation. People noticed it, thought it was a funny incident, and let it pass as that. But I was on the first floor, I observed this happen, and I was immediately concerned. And it brought me back to some work that I've been doing. Okay. I've been following a particular story, and because I haven't yet completed it, I won't give you too much detail about it. But what I'm trying to understand is the capacity of those who protect the VIPs in Ghana. Okay, because what I have learned is that it is a specific skill. It is not the kind of thing that you can just pick a burly-looking macho man to do. It is a specific skill set that people study. As much as you would study for a master's degree, people study to be close protection experts. Okay. So first I tried to find out how many of our Ghanaian security detail have that training. And I was very disappointed by the figure.
What did you find?
Well, first of all, I can tell you that those who are protecting the president are
Mind you, you're not putting too much information out there.
No, I won't tell you everything I found, but I can tell you that those who are protecting the president are members of police and military and security forces who have been picked not because they have specific training in this area. They may have experience, as in they have walked around with VIPs before. But as to whether they have been trained as to how to protect them, they have not. Now here is the difficulty.
And are you referring to the current crop of security personnel around the president or the previous administration, or are you looking at a general? Because I know that the previous administration, the head of security, for instance, had training from the UN.
So on VIP security?
I
Or he
believe
had
so.
training on
I can't say for a fact, but I believe that yes, he had some training.
Because there is a difference.
Okay.
Okay, because specific people play specific roles in providing security for the president. So there will be sharpshooters who should be located on rooftops in the general vicinity. They don't need to have close person training at all to do their job. But they are also contributing to the president's security. I'm talking about those who have close training in how to provide security for, at close range for the personalities who require the security. Now, here's the difficulty. This gentleman, this photographer, is basically doing his job. His job is to get to the shot. No matter how he must get it, he must get the best shot so that his network will show the clearest images of what happened that day.
Just so we put it in some kind of a context, and I've got a cameraman right behind the camera here shaking his head and basically saying that I don't agree. That even though the camera, yes, it will be interesting to bring a cameraman into the studio to have this discussion. Now, even though they agree that you've got to get the shots, but there are certain parameters. They always set the parameters during such events.
I think you should let me finish the point
Please.
I'm making. Yeah. So his job is to get the shot. Okay. Of course, there are rules governing every job. So you can't break the law to do your job. You understand? But his job is to get the shot. So whatever he is allowed to do to get the shot, he will do it. If you allow him to stand in the face of the president, he will do it because you have allowed it. If you don't allow it, he won't do it. And that's why our cameramen are shaking their heads, camera technicians are shaking their heads, because they have been trained on the correct way of interacting with people at such events. And so they wouldn't do what we saw this gentleman do. However, bear in mind, his job is to get the shot. So whatever you allow him to do, he will do. So here he is carrying a huge piece of equipment, trailing a cable. Now that equipment could be containing any manner of offensive weapon. The president's close security detail are supposed to create a certain perimeter beyond which no human can pass. No matter who you are, no matter how you are dressed, no matter how close you are to the president, if it hasn't been prearranged that you will enter that perimeter, nothing should allow you in.
No, but you talk about getting the shot. So if you do not set the boundaries for me,
exactly,
as a reporter, if you don't set boundaries for me, I will go.
That is the point I'm trying to make, Gifty.
Okay.
Because they haven't created that perimeter, he ended up wandering into that security zone. Now, what is worse is how they reacted. First of all, there was a police officer holding a baton who attempted to gently pull the man away. That didn't work. In fact, the police officer was rather dragged along with the security officer, with the camera technician who did not want to leave. Then several soldiers and others came and appealed to him, and he still remained. Even afterwards, when the president then was attempting to leave, you could see this man still in the way with the cable of his camera literally getting under the feet of the president. This is all a security lapse.
There you go.
Okay, there isn't too much of it that you can place at the feet of the
So the guy actually manages to pull the policeman along with him. He's huge, actually, the guy.
Well, that is no excuse. Let me tell you what would have happened if this had been Barack Obama.
Okay, hold on, Kojo, for me. I've got on the telephone line now Dr. Kwesi Eni, who is a security analyst, who will engage him further on this matter, find out if there's been any security breaches. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse. I think I lost him, but we'll definitely raise him back on the line. He's a security analyst. We'll talk about, look at the bigger picture, whether or not, from a security angle, whether there has been any breach. Tell me what would have happened if this was
first
Obama.
of all, I am by no means a security expert.
I'm just somebody.
Yes, I'm just somebody who has been studying a story that revolves around these matters.
Okay.
If this had been Barack Obama or any other leader who has trained people providing close security, what would have happened is that there would be a perimeter created that no person can cross. And if somebody accidentally wanders into that perimeter, the immediate action is to remove the threat. Now, as long as you are inside that perimeter, you're a threat. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter whether you've been known for 50 years to be a camera technician for the national
I've got Dr. Enim back. Sorry, Kojo, just so we don't lose him again. He's head of research at the KAPITC, Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse.
Yes.
So I don't know if you've seen the video of the GTV.
No, I don't watch television at all.
Okay, that's okay. I can try and attempt to describe it to you. So here is a...
No, I've been listening to the earlier interview.
Okay.
Look, whether a journalist has a responsibility to take the best shots or not, that journalist also has a responsibility as a Ghanaian to behave in a manner that is protective of the president's security and respectful of the office that he occupies, so that in performing that professional duty, the president is not put at risk and doesn't cause an embarrassment both to the president and to his own agency that he represents. That's number one. Number two, from what has been reported, under no circumstances should that journalist have gotten that close to the president. Granted that the equipment were checked, they went through the scanner and everything checked. Because certain types of explosives cannot be identified through a scanner, I think certainly those who provide close protection and those who provide the general, perimeter security ought to have done a little bit more. But I want to put this thing down to some of the weaknesses and the politicization of those who perform these duties.
Right.
If you remember, for most of last year, we demonized national security. Anyone who performs a particular type of service under a political regime is always demonized by the opposition, so that we don't have a track record of individuals within an institution who over X number of years build on their expertise, so that when a new person comes, that expertise is available ready, because it is the national interest that we are looking at. And I think what we've seen play out this morning must push all of us to start thinking in innovative and interesting ways. How do we prevent such behavior from threatening the person of the president? Because the person of the president and the office that he occupies is no more a political party affiliated or a partisan of office. He now represents the state of Ghana and all of us. So there are some larger questions that we need to be answered.
Doc, some people have said that, there are two ways of looking at it now. How did the guy end up there? Was the security, were the security personnel watching? Did they lose sight of something within the time that the president arrived? That here is a camera technician, he's got a huge camera on top of his shoulder. So how did he end up there? That's the question. And the other thing is that he's close, but he's a camera from the Ghanaian or from the national broadcaster. He's from the GTV, and usually they are allowed into certain parameters that, those of us in the private media are not allowed to.
I don't think in assessing the potential security risk to the person of the president, or those that we professionally call politically exposed persons, that there is anything that is called the national broadcaster, and therefore the representatives of the national broadcasting house are more secure than those in the private sector. Let me give you an example. Mr. Masood, who was head of the Mujahideen, was basically blasted away because he granted an interview to a group of journalists who came there, were assessed by his people, didn't do their work well, and within the cameras were hidden these explosives. Okay, text will not show if it passed through, the scanner. So whatever it is, the security men on duty don't know the faces of those who represent the national broadcaster.
Okay.
So by virtue of the fact that you have an ID card, and I can assure you, I'm sure it is a very cheap one, that anybody at all with a decent scanner can manufacture within 10 seconds.
Well, usually they've got the stations, they've got GTV written on the camera, so he'll have GTV on the camera, embossed on the camera. So
yes,
the moment
but
you
the
see
GTV embossed on the camera doesn't have any security features.
Okay.
So anybody can emboss a GTV on his camera.
Right.
So I think for me, this is a lesson learned. How do we going forward protect the president?
Okay.
And also, how do we get cameramen doing their professional duty to behave in such a manner that their behavior doesn't cause embarrassment to the president, to Ghana, and of course to their own station?
Is it an embarrassment to the security personnel around him? And I understand we're getting information from the police that it is not a policeman. Well, we see someone in uniform heckling the guy and trying to pull him away. We understand it's an Air Force, it's someone from the Air Force and not the police trying to pull him away. In such an instance, when the guy has already placed himself at a place where he shouldn't be, as a security person, the first thing you do is it to try and heckle him or try to shove him away, or to give him a warning, some sort of warning, and wait, give him some time to move away from there? Because right in front of the president, they heckle each other, sort of try to push him away from in front of the president.
Yes, you see, the heckling itself gives a very wrong impression. I think the real question we should ask is, what type of training do we provide so that in such a potentially embarrassing situation, those who engage the journalists and do their work in such a manner that the journalists obey? How do you hold his hand in a manner that you disable a nerve, so that he's forced to follow? You see, the person protecting the person of the president is so important and is so crucial that nothing is off the table when you want to protect the president. Now, what has happened this morning is most unfortunate, but I want to put it down as a lessons learned.
Yeah.
That as they do the evaluation and assessment this afternoon and tomorrow, whatever gaps and loopholes allowed this mistake to happen can be closed, and it will never happen again.
It will never happen again. Then there are bigger questions to answer, Doc, about a person who protect the presidency, whether or not they've got close security training. One of the things that I was talking about here in the studio with my colleague here, that he's been following a story about people who get close to the president. What kind of security training should they get? Is it special? Is it different from all the others? Is it different from all the other training that we give to our men in uniform?
Yeah.
How different?
Well, first and foremost, they should be willing and prepared to lay down their life for the president. They have to lay down their life for the president, first and foremost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it?
Well, that's enough, of course. And then weapons handling, knives, karate, as I said, the ability to disarm somebody by using his arm or part of his body so that you can politely pull it away.
Does it appear to you that the people that the president surrounds himself with are different from the people who were there in the previous administration? So what happens is that even if you train those people who are close to the previous administration, when they go away with them. And then we have a new crop of people. And this time you are likely to perhaps see people who were in the invisible forces. Okay, we've lost him on the line there. But he's basically saying something that Kojo had mentioned about the kind of training that we give to the people who get close to the presidency. Kojo, he was making a point about, he said the weakness, the politicization of those who the security persons who are close to the presidency, and which was what I was trying to get him on, that if you look at people in the invincible forces, the NPP's invincible forces, you are likely to find most of them in such positions around the presidency. Is that a worry, or is it something that we could just take and work with so that we can provide the necessary training and make sure that we do things the right way?
It is a massive worry, because already we're starting to see some of the effects of it. President Akufo-Addo became president on the 7th of January, and from that moment onwards, he is supposed to have the best protection around him, because he becomes a target to some people unknown. Okay? So if he comes along and then replaces all the people whose job it is to protect the president because of political considerations, then of course he's bringing in people who are yet to receive the training that would make them the best. Now, I was given the example of what would happen if this had been Barack Obama. Of course, that is a leader who is protected by the best. Another example would be the Israeli Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister. These are people whose close security staff go through rigorous training. First of all, they must work together. Okay?
What does that mean?
Yes, that means they must coordinate. While they are working to protect the president, they must be communicating with each other. This happened while the national anthem was being played. That means everybody was standing still.
Yeah.
So one moving person becomes obvious. Now, if they were working together, that one moving person would never have got past their perimeter. As soon as you start moving, he
positioned himself before the national anthem.
But he was moving while the anthem was playing, so he can't have been invisible to them. Okay, and he kept moving until somebody seemed to, of his own volition, a member of the Air Force, not a member of the president's security detail, a member of the Air Force decided to volunteer himself to come and remove this person.
So at that point,
you're
asking, where are the members of the president's
What's their training
detail?
telling them to do? While everybody is standing still, one person close to the president is moving, carrying a huge piece of equipment on his shoulder. What do you do? If it was Barack Obama's detail, look, if even a curtain is fluttering half a mile away, they will spot it. They will then alert the person who they have placed in that building in advance, because that's what they do. They make sure that every building that has direct line of sight to their principal has men in it and women, so that if a curtain flutters, they can send someone up to the correct room to make sure that it's not someone mounting a huge rifle to shoot the president. Okay? And in addition to that, if a person by some means finds themselves within that perimeter in the same way that this gentleman did, they wouldn't have gently tried to pull him away or negotiate or reason with him. They would have rugby tackled the guy, his camera, and everything he represents right out of the danger zone. They would have bundled him somewhere and interrogated him later to find out why on earth he was trying to get that close to the president.
Okay. Now, I've got a picture right behind you. I understand you took this photo.
Yes.
And this photo seems to have brought you very close to the president. In fact, I know people, one of our colleagues, well, our former colleagues, Efua Harrison, actually took a selfie with President Mahama.
Now,
how close did you get to this photo?
I was literally standing at the shoulder of that chief you can see on the left-hand side. Okay. And this is what is important. I took this picture at a time when I didn't work here at Multimedia. Okay. I lived in Cape Coast. Nobody knew me. Okay. I had come along for Komla Dumo's funeral. You can see the president, former president, wearing the ceremonial attire of Komla Dumo's funeral. Yes. I was basically standing next to this chief because I wanted to take a picture of him, and I had a camera that had a fixed focus. That means you cannot zoom with this camera. So I couldn't stand far away and take the picture. So I came and stood next to this chief. And the president, as you can see him right there, shaking hands with the chief. As soon as he finished shaking hands with the chief, he shook hands with me and left. Nobody had checked me. I had no credentials because I wasn't there representing the press. I had no credentials. I had nothing that should allow me to get within the personal space of former President Mahama. But there I was.
But it will surprise you that there are security personnel, the security details around who will be keeping an eye on you without you necessarily knowing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So how would they have stopped me from harming him if that had been my intention?
That's what I'm saying, that it will surprise you that perhaps they've seen you. They've, from afar, from wherever they are, they've probably assessed you.
I shook hands with him.
Yes.
No one searched me before I came there.
A lot of people shake hands with the president when he goes out.
So do they with Barack Obama, but they are all vetted before. They are all screened, vetted, searched.
I'm not entirely sure if they are all vetted, like you're saying, as rigorously as you make it sound.
Of course they are. I mean, you can't get into the president's, personal space without being searched.
Yes, but when the president has gone out, especially when they're on campaign trails, you see that they get very close to people.
The people who stand in the front row and get to shake his hand, they are all chosen. Nothing is left to chance. That is what their training makes them do, so that you cannot accidentally find yourself shaking hands with Barack Obama. They don't leave that kind of things to chance. Okay. And we ought to start thinking in the same way if we want to ensure the security of our leaders.
Very interesting discussion, Kojo. Earlier on, when I hosted Araba Kumsin and Malika Basta, but we spoke about this, and we went on social media, and there were very interesting comments about how people should not be allowed to come that close to the presidency. It's a very interesting discussion I'm having here with Kojo Youngson. Kojo Youngson is following some security stories, and that brings him a lot of details that the kind of details that he's sharing with us today. Thank you very much, Kojo.
Thank you, Gifty.
Mind you, he's also been in Parliament today where the action happened. It's very interesting, that video. Let's look at it again.
Ah.